Morgan have ever met
in person.
in person. We have been working, we met through social.
Mm-hmm.
We've been working together through social, and this is the first time, the very first time that we've met. But we built a business together. We've run the show together. And it's just a testament to the power of social can have when you do it right and you build relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what carries.
Mm-hmm. Hi, Dan. Yes, we are clowns. Thanks for being here. I'm excited to do this in to do this in person. And honestly, to what Nick was saying, like we've basically only used social to do this, and this whole show and everyone here joining us today. I mean, this happened because we've been doing this for over a year. And so the topic today, how to book 80% of your meetings on the social or more, is what we do. I mean, it's literally what we do. This is 100% of what B2B Power Hour and Aligned is. And I'm thrilled and excited to do an in-person one with Nick. So
yeah, long time coming.
A long time coming.
I don't know. Should we do a question of the day?
Do you have one?
No. Actually, I have a question for you guys. So, that's a bad tan line. Is there anybody that you guys really want to meet in person for the first time that you're social friends?
Mm-hmm.
Who is that person? Throw in the comments.
Yeah, throw it in the chat. We want to see. There's more of this out there. We know. I mean, I see a number of names in this chat who I would love to meet in person, right? Like the power of this live show.
Right?
I mean, I think Nick was top priority, so...
Where does Morgan get his shirts? I know, he's got to take me shopping.
I know. Thank you.
Didn't want to go and say anything.
I love all of the names being dropped in chat. I mean, I think there's so many that we know from LinkedIn that would be my answer to this.
Josh Braun.
Mm-hmm. Jen Marl.
Jen Allen.
Jen Allen
would be a blast.
Amazing.
Amelia Taylor would be a blast.
Amelia and I would tear up a city. Well, keep on. Oh, yes. Of course, Elon.
Great choices.
Jenny Holder will crawl over broken glass to get to her. It's great. Yeah.
Happy Friday. Will Allred, solid choice. He's going to SaaStr, so.
Oh, maybe. Maybe.
Where do you think we should start off today?
Oh,
it's just so weird.
I know. Actually being in person, it's like, what do you think?
I gotta actually look at you. I can't just look at the screen.
Yes, Lila, together. I know, together at last. Honestly, the thing I think about most is credibility. And the foundation for this whole thing, this whole live show, the all social. I know. You gotta watch the top of the camera here. The foundation for everything on social starts with credibility. And the reason that is because your presence as a seller, you need credibility no matter what kind of sales motion you're running, right? Your buyer has to view you as credible. And that's true if you call them, that's true if you email them. But in social, credibility is the foundation because your picture and your name is attached to everything you do. So if you're not building credibility with your buyers, if you're not building up this foundation, your buyers are just going to ignore you. I mean, we're all overwhelmed with so much information today. It's no secret that we have way too much content marketing, way too many posts out on LinkedIn. It's so easy to be tuned out. And credibility allows you to not be tuned out.
Yeah, it opens up the conversation, because how many times have we been hit up with different people getting, pitch slapped, and then you have the people that have a genuine ask, but because they, the engagement in public earn the conversations in private. They've earned the right. They have credibility. You know that when we have a conversation, it's going to be good. They've earned that. And I think that's the glue that really comes together through social, is having that credibility, knowing that it's going to be a good conversation. Because I think that's the biggest fear of most people right now, is we're all so busy. And so is it worth my time? Really? But like, even when you're cold calling, whenever you're doing social outreach, when you're sending an email, is this worth my time is what everybody's asking. But when you're putting out really great content and you're making it work,
That's credibility.
that's credibility.
And that's why, so I think it was Franklin Covey who had like put together a credibility framework. And the essential idea is, can I trust you? This is what credibility is, right? Can I trust you? Can you solve the problem that I'm experiencing? Are you a good person? And is it worth my time, as Nick was saying? So if you don't have credibility, if you're not building trust, if you're not just showing up with good intentions, this is actually something about the pitch lab, I think, on the credibility challenge, is like, if you're just out there constantly pitching, constantly, as Greg said, pushing, you're trying to get the market to pay attention to you, you don't have great intentions. You're just out there to sell, basically. And social credibility on social comes back to like, are you a good person, of course, and can I trust you? And the way you do that is by not trying to sell them, by not instantly pitching them every single opportunity you get. Like it's I'm at a loss for words because I'm so excited we're in person today.
But I think about it like going to see a doctor. When you go to see a doctor, if it's the first time you've ever seen that doctor, even though they're a professional, sometimes you question it.
Right.
But if it's your family doctor, they're like, oh, they say that I have this, then I probably do, because they've built that reputation over time. I think that's the really cool thing about social, is that your reputation is built over time, and it really adds that, it fulfills the whole picture. So now when you're doing any type of outreach, that's a great conversation.
I saw Brian's, what if you aren't a good person? Well, then you're really screwed. So on social, and let us know if we're having any audio visual issues, just by the way. On social, credibility comes back to your profile. It comes back to building a good profile that connects and tells stories. It passes the 3-second test. If this is your first time with B2B Power Hour, we talk about this all the time. Can your profile, will somebody, when they visit your profile, scroll? Will they understand what you do enough from your headline, from your cover photo? When you scroll, are they prompted to learn more? That's total credibility. Hi, Sod. Yes way. We are in person. So the reason that credibility is important, and it starts with your profile, is that everything you do on social comes back to Jeffrey's comment. Yes, our two screens have morphed into one today. Audio cracking. Interesting. Huh. I apologize if the audio is a little weird. We're obviously...
Little do you know, it's actually just Morgan.
Yeah. It's just me. I'm just talking too loud. That's all.
Morgan, you're so tough.
I know. So the reason it comes back to your profile on social, the reason your credibility challenge comes back to this, is because every outbound, inbound strategy you run on social, every nurture sequence you run on social, every sales navigator list you create, and everything you're doing against those accounts or leads inside Sales Navigator comes back to your profile. Like, your name, your photo is attached to everything you do. And that's not the case in other outreach channels, right? That's not the case when you're doing email. Somebody, we hear from VPs sometimes that they'll look up the seller. They'll Google your name and your company. And that's what your email is going to do. That's, it'll prompt that. But it is a prerequisite on social it's a nature of the platform that it comes back to your profile. So if you don't have a strong profile, if you don't have the basics down so far, then you're not going to get the sort of results that you're hoping. We have a puppy joining us, I believe. Maybe.
Sounds like it.
Sounds like it. A little friend. Hello.
Hi, Zo.
Hi, Zo.
I know nobody's giving you attention, but I think where we should really, so you have your credibility. You've built this profile. Now the boss is saying, get some work done.
Get some results. Like, can't you use social to actually book some meetings?
And so I think the most important part that we need to start is, how do you actually structure your day? And does other channels fit into the mix? And I think that's the part where it gets lost, is people think that it's social or die. Like it's cold call or nothing. It's email or nothing. And that's just not how it works. And so one of the things that you really want to incorporate is, social is asynchronous for the most part. People will do it on their own time, but that's your advantage. And so for it to work, it's not like a cold call because it won't be as fast, but you have to give it time. So one of the things that changed the game for me is I would work first thing in the morning, I would post my content and I would start commenting. And then I wouldn't touch LinkedIn for a while. Sometimes I would wait until just after lunch, or I would actually go right to the end of the day. And so that way I could balance it out and give it time to work so I could actually keep those conversations rolling. The thing that I didn't expect is it builds momentum. Because if like me and you are talking, and then we join somebody else in talking, and maybe we're talking to Lila or Greg, and all of a sudden it compounds. And so when you're consistent on social, it keeps moving everything forward. And next thing you know, instead of having one or two conversations or tracking activities, you're managing dozens of activities at any given time. So when you're outside of that social time, it's when you're picking up the phone and you're calling them or shooting them an email to nail down that meeting, because you've earned it through your engagement in public. They know who you are. They're having conversations. So picking up the phone and calling them, you're not a foreigner. They know who you are. They're expecting you. What's her name from Gong? Sarah Brazier. This is how she really really made it work. She was one of the first people I saw, kind of like the OG social seller. But she warmed everything up with social, and then she would call on the phone.
Yep.
Like it wasn't just one or the other. But this is how you have to stack it. But it really comes down to how strategically you're using it. So if you're running in the morning, what would you do first thing in the morning? What has been the best thing for you, Morgan?
First thing in the day, it's a piece of content that I post. It's not always good. I don't know what to tell you. Some days there's just not good content, but it's a post. It's consistency. It's trying to keep up that compounding effect. And then comments. Like that is the first chunk. It's just content and comments. And there's some strategy around the comment side, because if you do this really intentionally and you have a Sales Navigator license, you can set up triggers or notifications or alerts inside Sales Navigator with lead lists and account lists that allow you to focus on the active accounts on social, the people who are posting content, and engage with it. And in my experience, I think we over prioritize immediate engagement. So on some of the larger accounts, like the influencer accounts,
how many, when we were first starting?
Oh gosh,
how many times did we not burn relationships?
No,
but basically pushed it off.
Yes,
because we're like,
come on,
I sent you a comment, like you should comment back.
You should comment back, exactly.
And then as soon as you change that mentality, it changes the whole game, because now you can layer.
Yes.
And one thing that I think people forget with like comments and content is that most people aren't posting.
Yeah.
So like this is actually bigger, because a lot of you guys will go and send us DMs. You're like, yeah, but my audience isn't on LinkedIn. There may not be posting on LinkedIn, but if you actually go through their activity, they'll be liking, and they may not necessarily be commenting, but they're there.
Yeah.
They're on there to be entertained. They're on there to watch the B2B Power Hour. They're on there to go and learn new things, right? But this is why you got to go and do high value work. Like Nate Nisrael is really good at this. Will Allred's really good at this. They'll read little value drops, and they'll do that strategically, and they'll do it openly to so many people that it's the outbound that comes inbound. And I think that's the art of social selling, is that engagement in public, that it comes back. But like Morgan started this whole conversation, it's also about the credibility piece, because if they come back and it's like it's like we've all have that one friend that talks about how much money they make, and then you go and see their house and you're like, you sure?
You're really sure about that? And so from the structure piece and prioritizing your time, Sales Navigator doesn't notify you the moment somebody posts. That shouldn't stop you from dropping a good comment, especially if they're a target account or a target lead. And the reason that I start my day off with a piece of content and comments is it's sort of like starting up the engine for the day. So if you think about dropping a really good comment, if you have a comment that's insightful, a comment that asks a question, a comment that's a joke, emojis recommended on the jokes. I've seen some jokes go wrong on LinkedIn where somebody is not.
That's never happened.
Never happened to us. You got to imply intent there, and tagging in peers and friends, and I know Kellen, who's here with us today, does this really well. He'll put a comment and then tag in like 3 of his close peers that he talks with all the time to keep the conversation going. He doesn't do this on every post he comments on. It's usually like 1 a day at most, and we do that too. The purpose of that is to give you a break to go and do your job.
What? You still have to work?
You still
I thought social selling was a job.
So this is underrated. Like I know Nick and I are on LinkedIn. It seems like we're on LinkedIn a lot. And we're on LinkedIn a lot. We're probably LinkedIn power users compared to normal users. But from the flow of our day, the structure of our day, we're actually not on LinkedIn a whole lot. Like we respond to DMs when we have the chance, or continue conversations when it makes sense. But most of the activity that you see in our feeds is like strategically timed. Like we're actually, like for me in the morning,
it's also focused.
It's super focused.
I think that's the biggest thing, that when how many people get random acts of social and they just kind of go around. And honestly, that's where we started. All the guides that we read and all the things that we got told to do. But honestly, half an hour, first thing in the morning, that's all it takes. Half an hour at the end of the day, it's all it takes. And you can put in a half an hour in between. But when you do your time blocks, write what you're doing. Like if you're giving one of the easiest ways to write content, book 15 minutes, book 30 minutes, write content, and then it's, when I'm done with this block, it needs to be posted, non-negotiable. In this series, I'm going to go through Sales Nav and go through my lead filters, and I'm just going to comment on as many as I can in 30 minutes. That's it. But that's how you do this, is it's non-negotiable, and then you just, when you're done, you're done.
You move on with your day. I mean, social media platforms are built to make us feel like we're missing out, basically. And so there is a strong pulse to always, and I feel this some days when I don't get time structured all that well, that I get sucked back into the vortex, and you start scrolling the feeds. And so when you get caught up in the vortex, your whole day goes away, right? And you lose out on your other potential productive activities. So when you're commenting, the reason that I comment first off is then people will respond, or they'll like the comment, or they'll tag in somebody else, and the conversation continues. So by the time I check back in around noon, lunchtime, for the next block to sort of continue conversations and respond to comments on the post and et cetera, that I now have a big checklist to sort of go through and keep it rolling without my day going sideways, where I feel like I'm constantly scrolling or constantly in conversation with people. And like, yeah, there's a give and take here, I think, especially on DMs. If you're chatting with a prospect, that could be part of some unstructured time. But like, it's so important to chunk out.
Well, I find that even too, like if you're too on it and like you're living on it, you lose your edge a little bit because it gets frustrating, or it feels like it becomes a job. But I think that's the hardest part about social selling, is having the patience and being structured. Because when you are structured, it works. You can book over, like Evan goes and booked 80 plus meetings. He like last week or whenever Trender was doing their launch, he booked 50 or 60 meetings in a day.
Yeah.
But it's knowing how to time block and being very efficient in those time blocks and staying focused and putting the blinders on, going, I'm not going to go and do this. I'm not going to go and do this. I'm just going to do this. And that, as you're dialing that in, that's when it gets really great. And so, like, what would you say are like the major social power plays? So, like, so you got your block first thing in the morning.
Yep.
Maybe a block in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
And then a block at the very end of the day. So the conversations from the morning are continuing into the evening, and then they come back and they go to the morning. See how this goes?
Yeah.
So what are the plays though? Like, so I need to book meetings now. My manager's on me. What are the power plays that we can run?
Well, you have to comment. I mean, and I know we've talked. So we do have a 3Cs sort of thing.
Why anything?
Puppy wants attention here.
Hello. Angrily.
So we talk about the 3Cs. So it's like content, comments, and connections or conversations.
Show you to everyone.
Hello. Hi, Zoe.
This is the interference.
Anyways, so one of the major power plays that I use, and actually I think we use all of the time, is finding people who are complaining about problems.
Join the gossip. But actually, they're problem aware.
Yeah. They're problem aware. They're posting comments. They're posting content. They're asking questions. But the art form is finding the way that they're talking about the problem. And this is, I think this is true in all sales and like true in all outreach. But on social, people don't use product marketing language.
What?
I know, us marketers.
So was it a big adjustment for you?
It was. So, on social, people are going to talk about their challenges in a casual way.
Yeah, like you're talking to a friend, and it's like casual over coffee or beers.
Coffee house, yeah.
Oh, my manager's frustrating me. That's how it comes out. But then you're like, oh, cool. Okay, so what's your role?
Yeah.
What could they be frustrating you about? Or, the phone is killing me. I hate cold calling. Or
does anybody have experience with X problem, right? People make posts about that all the time. And so the goal is to search for that phrase or phrases when you find them using LinkedIn's normal search. And what all your
it's a bit of an art, just so you guys know.
Yeah, it's not
it takes some practice. Put things in quotation marks.
Yep. A Boolean search, right?
Also, you can also go click on posts, and then on the top there's a filter for authors industry, which can be really good.
Yeah. So you can get pretty narrow to like the right sorts of people who are posting about it. And I would say, somebody else articulated this differently, but I've always called these like the Princess Leia prospects who are like, help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Oh yeah, they're ready.
You're right. You're my only hope. Help me, basically. And they're going to be like 3% of your prospects. It's going to be a small chunk.
Very small.
But they're ready. So if they're posting about it, they want to hear from people who can add insight or ask questions or continue the conversation. And so it is dropping a comment on that post or responding to their comment on somebody else's post and continuing the conversation. So this is not the moment to pitch. And we see it. We see it a lot. It is not a moment to pitch in the comments. It is to add something insightful or add an observation. And sort of think coffee house rules. How would I guide this conversation if I was sitting across them in a cafe? How would have you thought about this? Have you tried this? Did you see this person's post on this? I saw it just the other day, and continue that conversation with your Princess Leia leads, because they're immediately going to pay attention. They're going to look at your profile, back to the credibility challenge. They're going to respond if it's a good comment, and you can keep that going either in the comments or into the DMs.
And when you get this dialed in, what you can do is you can take a different one each day. So you got to figure out how many. It's almost like building a list, a contextualized list.
Yeah.
So what are the main things you're searching for on a given day? It might be 3 things, maybe 2 things. You could also search hashtags and go through, but a lot of that are people trying to sell stuff, so it's not always the best. But how many search terms do you need to fill that time block?
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you have to think about it, is if I'm going to have a very productive time block, I need to know what I'm searching before I start.
Yeah.
And then when you do enough of these touches, you notice that your profile views will jump. You'll notice that you'll start getting people coming inbound that you've never talked to, because all you're doing, this is the beauty of the problem aware, is you're just continuing the conversation. They've started it and they want to keep going. It's like, remember like the old school days where the teacher, like, anybody have any questions? You're like,
Yeah.
yeah, but I'm not putting my hand up
Yeah.
to go and ask that question.
I'm not
And
gonna respond. I know it, but I'm not gonna say
then there's
anything.
like the one person in the back, like, I have a question. And they asked the big question that it was on everyone's mind, but nobody wanted to go and ask it.
Yep.
And then they asked the question, and everybody's like, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's commenting.
Mm-hmm.
That is why commenting is so powerful, is because you're having that, when you do this well, you're continuing that conversation that people have in their heads that they're too afraid to go put out there.
Yep.
That's why a lot of people don't post.
Yep.
But they'll see, and especially if you're commenting on people they trust, you're getting trust through association, the credibility again.
Mm-hmm.
That's really powerful. That is a really efficient hour.
Yes. And that's also back to like the idea of time blocking. There's the do you need to?
Okay, I'll go take her out.
Okay.
Be right back.
Puppy needs some attention, so you get just Morgan for a hot second. Thank you for being here, everybody. Welcome. This is a stand-up comedy mic now. So the goal in time blocking and structuring your day, for me at least, comes back to, there's not on social, there's less pressure to respond immediately. It may feel like it's designed, LinkedIn notifications send you all of the stuff to say, hey, you should come and respond to this post. But unlike an email conversation back and forth with a prospect to try and structure time, there's not a lot of pressure necessarily on social to respond immediately to keep the conversation going. And that comes back to the nature of social and building credibility. Because if you're too fast, if you're going, you're really trying to go too hard in the comments, you're trying to get to that meeting, they can smell that. They can smell the desperation. And so it's important in structuring your day that even if you're doing this play, that then you can come back later and not think about it. You have other things to do. You might have sequences to run. You might have to clean up a CRM. Whatever else you have to do as a part of your job. Then you come back into the social network, into LinkedIn, and you continue that conversation. So that finding Princess Leia leads is sort of play number one. Thank you for the well-coiffed comment. I appreciate that. And yes, Evan, we are somehow in the same country. So thanks for everyone for being here. Basically, one of the actually, this is a really interesting question. So Patrick Reedy had commented, trying to find my knowledge management audience. How do I see where these guys are posting about this topic? Because most posts related to knowledge management are coming from salespeople trying to promote their services on LinkedIn. So the people in the knowledge management groups won't have real combos on social. Some of this, and this is very common for basically not B2B SaaS. Like if this is where a second power play can come in, and this is some of your content and building trust with people indirectly. So hello.
It's me.
It's me. It's back. I pulled up Patrick Reedy's question because this is really good. So trying to find his audience, see where they're posting, but most posts in the industry are coming from salespeople trying to promote, so the people in these groups won't have real combos on social. Basically, they've tuned out the problem. And I was gonna dive in. So some of this comes back to your personal credibility, right? Your ability to strike up one-on-one conversations, and content serves an important role for you, right? Because that allows you to build trust indirectly. But to cut through the noise, you might need to send a connection request or a DM to these folks and strike up a conversation directly with them before you try and nurture them. So you're sort of inverting the pyramid because they've tuned out. They said, I'm not going to listen to anything. So you strike up the conversation first as if you were in like an in-person conference. If you knew at an in-person conference, most people don't pay attention to social. This has worked really well in the past. Don't pay attention to social or whatever. You meet the person, you're like, oh my God, you're really cool. You know a lot of things. That's really awesome. And then every time you log into LinkedIn, you start to see their content. And so they may not like or comment, but they're going to pay attention because you've broken through the brick wall. So some of this may come from finding ways to directly connect with them first, and then later using content mostly to nurture them since they've tuned it out.
Well, and too, like, so if like coffee rules, if you want to go and be interesting, you have to be interested. And so if you're asking really good questions and trying to get to know them, it goes back to vampire sales. If you're just asking good questions, having a good conversation, what naturally happens? People go, so what do you do?
Yeah.
And they've now invited you in. So like folklore, vampires weren't allowed in a home unless they were invited. Vampire sales is don't pitch unless you're invited. And it creates a really dynamic conversation. And why this is actually even more important than people realize is if I DM Morgan, do you know what happens? LinkedIn's like, oh, they know each other. And if you go back and forth a few times, like, oh, they're friends, I'm going to show them more of their content. So you've built this good relationship with someone, Patrick, and now you're just having like a casual conversation. And then all of a sudden, because you're posting good content, it's top of feed, top of mind.
So yes, as he commented, just slide into their DMs. That's correct. That is the correct way to articulate this. So, what is another power play that you use all the time on social?
So one of my favorite ones, and I know Evan calls it the swarm and inform. But what I always ask is, who are the 5 or 10 people that need to know we exist? And what do they need to know before they want to book a meeting with me? And then I'll start building out a game plan.
At an account, right? 5 to 10 people at a single company. Okay, yeah.
And so then what I'll do is I'll start talking to all of them. And this is kind of, if you guys saw the other day, sometimes I'll just try different frameworks. I get bored and I just need to get out of the monotonous crap. And so like Monday, I start with management. Tuesday and Thursday are technical. So end users of that product that are feeling the pain. It's part of their jobs to be done. Wednesday is you're going up to seniority. I'll say wisdom. So it's whoever has influence. And then on Friday is finance. And so I'll go and talk to everybody and have champions built in that 1 week that I'll carry in over into other weeks. And I can do that in an hour. It doesn't take more because I've done all my account research on that one company. And if I'm talking to the same personas, it's done. And then if you're dealing with really big accounts, then what you can do is, like I said, the Monday to through Friday plan is you can work 5, 10, 20 accounts, and then you're just picking the same type of person each day. So when we're talking really clean lists, it makes this really easy because now you don't have to think about it. You just go. And you'll as you do this more and more too, it gets easier to do that research because you're looking.
Yes.
You're like, oh, I didn't see what I was looking for. I was looking for this, or like, oh, they went to school here, or they play a sport, or actually their job has it. It's weird that they're using Lavender. That's cool that they're taking emails seriously. But these are all conversation points when you're going so narrow on those days that you can get a lot of counts rolling really fast and make it fun.
So can we clear the air really quick? Evan asks, why did he think Nicholas is taller than me? Because I am a flamingo and I have extremely long legs. I'm pink and long-legged. So if we lined up hips, I have a very average to short top part of I'm all legs. If we meet in person, I'm all legs. That's why. And usually I'm like sitting down for these. So that anyways, Ashley asks a more serious question, which is, when you say you're reaching out to them, is that through Sales Nav and DMs? Great question. I was actually just about to dive into this. Evan, you're on fire as per usual. So the simplest answer is no, not through Sales Nav and DMs. But there's sort of an order of priority here, right? So the way, at least, and please jump in whenever. The way I think about it is inside that list, the 5 to 10 people that you're going after, who's active?
Yeah.
And order of priority are people who are posting inside the account, people who are commenting inside the account, and then last priority are lurkers, people who aren't doing either of them. And the reality is there's sometimes there aren't anybody who's posting content, which is fine, or they're only resharing
But
stuff,
they
which is
always have salespeople.
but they always have salespeople, and they also there's always going to be people who like and comment, right? There's at least one person. And so I always start there. Who's active, right? Low hanging fruit. And on their last comment, I'll maybe reply. Or on a piece of content that they share, I'll comment or ask a question. Or I'll see the influencers that that person or the people who are active follow and engage with, follow those influencers and hop into those comments, so that even if I'm not directly engaging with the prospect's activity, I'm indirectly engaging with their activity, so they see my comments from the influencers. But then the third tier is a good chunk of LinkedIn, which is lurkers, people who don't post and people who don't comment. So how do you like to deal with lurkers inside accounts?
I'll just to even answer Ashley's question really simply.
Yeah.
I warm up accounts by commenting first.
Mm-hmm.
We use something called the rule of 3. Once we have 3 back and forth conversations in the DMs, preferably in one chat.
Yeah, one chat. Yep.
I'll send a connection request continuing that conversation from the comments, because they're open to talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
So then I'll move it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you can start doing fun stuff. Michael, I just wrote any strategy related to smart links. This gets really fun now when the conversation is open and they've told you something. Your discovery starts. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to go in a meeting to be doing your discovery. And
No.
quite frankly, your discovery should start when you're prospecting, because you're doing your account research.
Mm-hmm.
And smart links, like a link shortener through LinkedIn, can be a really fun way to actually start threading.
Mm-hmm.
Multi-thread right off the bat and giving them resource. Like, hey, I know you guys were just talking about this, and I was talking with so-and-so.
Yeah.
Here's a resource I think would really help. And what you're doing is you're helping them get to the place where they're ready to buy.
And I've seen Jesse Ouellette use smart links in comments, which is a really interesting strategy.
Oh, really?
But it has to be, I would say, if you look at the activity feed, if you asked me personally, it's like sometimes really effective, sometimes not. And the times that it's really effective are when somebody is asking for a specific resource. Duh, right? Like, of course, right? So being able to put together a smart links resource of like, I remember we were just chatting about this the other day, and drop it in. Or as Nick was saying in the DMs, you can do discovery without a call. Like you should be, at least. You should be trying to validate your assumptions with the people that you're trying to go after. And what that means is you can use SmartLinks resources to begin to compile the information that your account needs based on the conversations you're having with all of the people throughout the account. And then you can have either one hub, multiple hubs, however it needs to be structured, so that it all lives in one place. And obviously there's some analytics there, but then your prospects, the people that you're trying to route into, also have that resource, and they can share around internally. That we don't really use smart links, but we have other ways of compiling resources. And
Just
I will
send
say,
people stuff in DMs.
yeah, exactly. It is astounding to me the number of times that leads will share stuff inside their own account without ever telling you. So if it's a good enough resource, if it's a good enough piece of information, if it's insightful, if it's frame breaking, or whatever else it needs to be, you can use that as a part of your outbound strategy.
And with smart links, that's now an intent trigger that can guide you to have better conversations. I want to be very clear about something though. With social selling, there's part prospecting and there's part demand gen.
Yeah, right.
So like when Morgan was talking about the influencers, so like the people that speak at the trade shows that aren't like the celebrity status, but
not Gary V.
Yeah,
right. Not the 5 million followers.
Yeah, like somewhere between like 5 and 25,000. That's who people follow. That's a demand strategy by getting in their comments and getting to earn their trust, and then you get trust through association. That's a demand gen side. What we're talking about right now too with the account side, that's prospecting, and it's account by account. But you should do all of it. This is how you can actually stop cold calling is when you go and layer this in. So if you start your day with demand gen, like what I was saying, I do my morning and my evening, that's my demand gen. That's me continuing conversations and comments. But I'm never bored because there's always I'm building conversations over days or weeks.
Mm-hmm.
In the middle of the day is when I get really strategic on my accounts.
Yeah.
Which can be on the phone, which can be through social.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we'll start doing, like, I'll pick an account and I'll swarm. My goal is to get them talking about me. Evan's really good at this.
Mm-hmm.
Is somebody to go through his activity? Well,
I don't know about that. You might get lost in the vortex going through his activity feed. Actually, he brings up a really interesting point in a comment, which is super true for me too. If I do DM, I prefer DMs over Sales Nav because I forget to check Sales Nav. Correct. I don't use Sales Nav's inbox. It's just I don't use it as a buyer and I don't use it as a seller.
And anytime
Anytime
you send a connection request
Yep.
through there and mark them as a lead,
Yep.
and if you send a personalized note, it only goes to the Sales Nav inbox.
Yep.
So just so you know, if you're one of those people that you need to have the blinders and you can't do that, and you want to do all your account management and strategy just in Sales Nav, you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a separate inbox.
Yeah.
And that has screwed me more times than I care to admit because I forget about it and it doesn't give you notifications all the time.
And also, LinkedIn's a social media platform. Like, use the Now, I was actually going to write a post this morning about how horrible LinkedIn's normal inbox is. Sidestepping that, it is most people don't have the sorts of inbox activity that we might. So, just using the normal DMs, just using the normal inbox on LinkedIn is a lot easier for the buyer because it's the normal inbox for them. And you might as well just use it the way your buyer uses things, right? Like that's the ultimate principle here. All you're doing is running a sequence that's getting people.
Is offensive. It's something
It's
special.
Something special. You're just trying to get people again to pay attention to you, to build credibility, all those foundational challenges. So, honest question: when do you send connection requests? When do you like to?
When I feel like I know them.
Mm-hmm.
So, one thing I learned early in sales is that I used to play a game when I would train my reps, and I called it the race to commonality.
Mm-hmm.
I actually used to send them out to bars to get them to talk to girls because they were the hardest people to talk to because you had to be relevant really fast, or they'd tell you to get going.
Uh-huh.
But I call it the race to commonalities. What happens is when you meet somebody and you find something they love, they lean in, they pick up their voice, their whole posture changes, they're like everything changes, and they lean in and they're interested,
Mm-hmm.
and they're pick up the rate of how they talk. I watch for that in comments, and I look at how quickly they're getting back to me. I look at how much detail they're giving me. Are they using emotional language? And I'm looking at, are they being more open with me? That is my sign that I've earned the right to send a connection request.
Mm-hmm.
You got to think about it like meeting somebody at a coffee shop. If it feels right, if it's something you would actually do in person, and the conversation's going, why wouldn't you send a connection request?
Right. And this is where, I mean, even thinking about lurkers or thinking about people who are above the power line in certain organizations, there are moments, but it is a smaller percentage than you think that you can send a really well-crafted connection request. But the goal of that connection request is to generate an immediate response, like a cold email, right? There's going to be there's going to be difference in how it's formatted, but the sort of objective is going to be very similar. So either you're connecting with them because they're active on the platform and you know them well enough, like what Nick had laid out. You can comment without ever having sent a connection request. You can love talking with people, right? So when it comes to direct connection requests and actually getting somebody's attention, you want to personalize that and formulate that in a way that's going to generate an immediate response. And Nick and I get dozens of personalized connection requests every week, and I can count on one hand, perhaps one finger, the number of times that they're actually good.
And we're talking about in the last year.
Yeah.
Not this week.
Not this week. I genuinely probably can only think of like one or two connection requests that I've personally received that I went, this is good. I'm going to respond to this. Most of the time people waste the personalization box on nonsense, basically. It's like, hey, I saw you engaged on this. I don't care. Like, as the buyer, I don't know, whatever. Because nowadays, this wasn't the case 8 months ago, by the way. Nowadays, people have abused this so much that if you send a personalized connection request to somebody cold who you haven't interacted with, and it's formulated on some personalized BS. Hey, I saw you engaged on this post. Hey, I saw you commented. Hey, I saw we went to the same college together. You know what's going to happen? I accept every connection request I get because I want to see what happens so we understand what's going on the platform. Most people will ignore them in our experiments and with the sales
Glad you
teams we
do,
work
'cause I
with.
don't.
But what then happens is my little antennas go up, the red flag goes up, and I say, they're going to pitch me. And 8 times in 10, they pitch me. And some of that's in an automation sequence that they shouldn't be using, but other times it's they're actually manually following up and they're saying, look at me, look how great I am, you should buy things from me, without ever having a conversation on social. And so unless you that personalized connection request to somebody cold has to be like an exceptionally well crafted cold email that prompts a response.
That taps into the narrative already in their head, and they're like, "How do
Yes.
you know that?"
Right, and
That's when it's okay to send that.
Yes,
But
100%.
that's hard because you have to be really dialed in and have done your research to really answer why them,
hmm
why now,
And that bar is higher on social than it is on email because people
especially
don't,
now.
and people are tired of the crap of spam artists, right? And they're also the higher bar is there because of the credibility challenge again. It's not just people log into LinkedIn, they don't want to be pitched, right? Nobody logs into LinkedIn in the morning and goes, I can't wait to get sold. And the same is probably true for email, right? Like what did you like the
Yeah, I did.
so the the same goes for email, but people expect it in email. And it's very, there's some technology that allows you to do it, but people can't really opt out of it on email. They can opt out of it on social. They'll just ignore your connection request. They'll block you. They'll report you, whatever, right? Instead, if you spend the time warming up the account on the front end or sending a really well crafted connection request, it bypasses those mental spam filters to get into their inbox and to generate a response. But again, it's going to be a very small percentage. It's basically like, as Jordan Crawford says, there's a ditch. You're going to hit a ditch unless if you work with me. Like that sort of timing. I just saw you, I'm sorry, but I just saw you hired a director of sales enablement. We have a sales enablement platform that product feature set, blah, 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 blah. Can we have a time this week? Like that's not worth anybody's time. It's not going to do it.
Now that Morgan's had his rant.
Yes. Excuse me.
I want to make sure you guys kind of see the outline, the framework that we found that worked.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the only way to do is just do it like a really quick recap in these last 10 minutes is social selling is a mix of demand gen
Mm-hmm.
and prospecting. The demand gen is the engagement in public that earns the conversation in private. And what you're doing is you can call the heels of the day or like the morning and night, is you're just carrying conversations and keeping that flowing. So the morning feeds the afternoon feeds the morning and the following day. So you're building momentum each day. During the middle of the day is when you work your account specifically. What I have found is it typically only takes a week to break into the account. Because once you've broke into the account, now you can just keep conversations going. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing with the morning and the afternoon. The thing that I see happen too often is people don't prioritize ongoing conversations.
It's so true.
And
mm-hmm.
LinkedIn DMs get we won't go there, but like, so if you go and prioritize the conversations every single day, so you have your demand gen where you're posting that really good piece of content that's high value, you're commenting on those influencers so that people are seeing you and you're getting trust and getting recognized and having that credibility. Now you're moving into your account management, but you should continue the conversations that are happening. Let it happen in its own time. People don't want to talk to you every day necessarily when you're working your accounts, right? Like, especially when you get to C-suite, unless it's something worth talking about, it might be over a course of a month. So if you always have that bench of 20 to 50 conversations of accounts, that is how I found that I could go and stop hustling and get really strategic by just working that bench of ongoing conversations. And what I do is I try to have 50% new conversations as well, or a little less, to keep feeding that
Mm.
bench. So if people timing's not right, I
Yeah.
don't have the necessarily the right product fit for what they need for that specific problem that we nailed,
Hmm.
then I have somebody to replace that person on the bench. And that's how this feeds that 80% plus of your meetings, is because it's not day by day, it's not hour by hour. It's something that actually builds momentum with every day that you are consistent. Consistency is key. And so you got your demand gen, you got your prospecting.
And the reason the momentum builds is because it is demand gen. Like, let's just get this kind of out of the way. It's not because, I mean, sure, your prospecting can be great, and yes, you can find the right timing and the right accounts, but the reality is you are building up credibility in the market and awareness in the market for people to know you, who you are, through your comments, through your content, through your conversations. So when the time is right, they become inbound. This is, we talk a lot about outbound that becomes inbound, right? That's the demand gen thing. You're technically running an outbound strategy. You're commenting, you're connecting with people, you're putting out content, which is, it's indirect, but you're educating the market, you're putting together good resources. All of this is outbound on social. You're going out to where the conversations are happening, blah, 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 blah. That becomes inbound over time if you keep up, as Nick said, your consistency, because now people have a reason to talk to you. They go, oh, we need that software platform. Who's the person that works there? They look at your LinkedIn profile. So now you get a profile visit. Then they message you and they're like, we need to talk. And that's not because you were prospecting them. That's because you were doing all this other stuff on demand gen. That's technically outbound
And,
on social.
and honestly, this, as sellers, this is your lifeline. And
Mm-hmm.
nobody talks about this. We are self-sufficient when we go and use social in this manner. And nobody says you can't phone and email as well. Just warming up with social makes you recognized and credible. And so say you do a bunch of discos this week
Mm-hmm.
and you heard the same problem articulated in the same way, what can you do? Post a piece of content on it.
Yes.
And because LinkedIn loves when you're talking in the DMs, it prioritizes your content. So even though you're connected and maybe you're not having like really in-depth conversations, but you're staying in touch, right? You're keeping the conversation going, keeping the account warm. You're top of feed and top of mind.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really easy for people to share that because they don't have to share any information to do it, and they can do it in private.
Yes.
But this is how social selling can go wrong, is because people will do just content creation. They're like, it's too slow. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just content.
Content can take quite a while to work. Can.
Uh-huh.
Commenting works really fast.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you're not expecting to book a meeting right away.
Mm-hmm.
If you're using some of the power plays, like we were talking about, like people that are problem aware and they're complaining online,
Yeah.
you can book a meeting instantly.
Mm-hmm.
Like we said, Evan's incredible at it.
Mm-hmm.
But what you guys need to do is build your own power play library and use the key plays in your week that get you to your goal.
Mm-hmm.
And when you structure it this way, you take yourself out of the chaos and you're not just running wild. And I think that was the hardest part, even when we started, was
so hard.
how the hell do you organize your day and not feel like you're losing your mind to social? And you know what the really cool part is? When you start running these plays, and as you're learning more about customers, hey, did you notice that they're like IT people are on Reddit?
Oh yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
so now I can yeah, I did actually know that. Well, maybe I should go and start writing on Reddit as well, and like add just a weekly block of 1 hour just so I'm showing up.
Yep.
Hey, did you see that TikTok? Like the comments are getting better. Maybe for B2B, like Chili
Mm-hmm.
Piper's doing. Maybe we should go and like do like even just a couple pieces of content every week. But this is what happens: is when you get out of the chaos,
Mm-hmm.
you can start picking what you want to do with your time. And if you track what is starting meaningful conversations, screw activities, all the other crap. My goal is always 5 meaningful conversations a day minimum.
Mm-hmm.
Look at what's getting you the most meaningful conversations, and you'll notice this trend that you might string conversations on a little bit longer doing something like this.
For sure. Yeah.
But the really neat thing is I call it, it's like buying a suit.
Mm.
I've already bought the suit. I just need the tailoring. You've sold them the suit through all these conversations. They bought you. They've bought into the company.
Mm-hmm.
They've bought into the overall solution, and that you understand their problem better than anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's coming in for the tailoring. They're like, so how do you custom fit this to me so that I get the right impact that I need to move this forward?
And I posted about this the other day. If you check out, there's a cool little graphic. In tradition, let's say traditional selling, so phone and email in person, the most of this work happens when the lead is in pipeline. So yeah, from first touch to qualified pipeline in traditional sales can be pretty quick. They're a qualified op or a sales accepted opportunity or however your pipeline is set up. But then the reason the sale takes so long is because you're doing all of this work while they are in qualified pipeline. In social, it changes. You do the work before their qualified pipeline, right? Before they're a sales accepted opportunity, you're doing all of this credibility work up front so that by the time they come to you, by the time, as Nick says, they bought the suit, they're ready basically. They just need the tailoring. They have a few final concerns, a few final questions, but that's why deals generated on social close quickly, is because you've done all of the traditional sales work up front. So by the time they reach out to you and they say, hey, we should have a meeting, that deal moves like that. Like it's
You know what surprised me too?
Hmm.
You can do a lot of disco in DMs.
So much discovery in DMs.
And like multi-threading, and
Mm-hmm.
so much work can be done in the DMs and comments.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like we've taught ourselves that if it's not in a meeting, it's not discovery.
Right.
But when you're building your account research and you're building that out, whether it's in the CRM or a separate doc,
Mm-hmm.
this is how, when you do your power hours and you do your 30 minutes of list building, your actual power hour, and then your 30 minutes of admin, that's where that admin piece comes in.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
guys, like, if you feel you're feeling overwhelmed, shoot us a DM. We'd be happy to point you in the right direction. We have been there. Like,
we are not gurus. We are people who found 10,000 ways for things not to work, which means I was flat on my face every single day for the last year, just embarrassed and like, oop, that one didn't work, or oh
we
gosh,
still do that. I'll message Morgan and be like, so I ran this experiment.
It didn't work.
It didn't work. It didn't work at all.
Same.
It was really bad.
Same though, and it's important to do that. It's important to know, and in traditional sales too, not every email is going to land. Not every phone call is going to go great. Not every message you send on social is going to be perfect either. That's just the nature of the game. So here's the thing. We've brought up this term power play a number of times. So if you're with us, you can go to b2bpowerhour.com and join a waitlist for a power play library that we're putting together. And it's basically an ad hoc version of us to be able to, how do you do a prospecting power hour? How do you do some of this LinkedIn stuff? We're rolling it out soon. We're doing little cohorts. So if you want to join the waitlist, go to the site. There's a link, Power Play Library. Join it there.
We want to take the guesswork out of your guys' days.
Yeah.
That was what it was. It was originally what we started doing for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Is just like, what are the plays that actually work? So I can take some of the thinking out of just what the hell to do. And now I guess we're making. I didn't know we were doing this today, but now it's available.
Well, the wait list is. The full thing is in progress, and we'd love to have you join.
Oh, also, guys, Morgan has been doing the most insane update to the LinkedIn sales guide.
Oh yeah, that's happening.
You guys have an unlimited subscription. Like, you keep getting all of the updates.
Yeah.
Stay tuned in the next week or two.
Yeah, a couple weeks. We'll be sharing some stuff if you're not following along. So, but I really, to close this out, you can do so much on social. You can build a company if you really wanted to. We did.
You can start a live show.
Yeah.
You can build a community. You can go and make longtime friends.
And you can definitely book more than 80% of your meetings on social.
And I think the one thing you guys know.
Close this out.
It's 2022.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody should be suffering in silence. sales, marketing, CS, if you guys are here and you need help, please reach out. Reach out to anybody in the comments. Reach out to us personally in the DMs. You don't have to buy anything.
No.
We want to support you because we know what it's like to feel like the world is against you and you just don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And it's not fair when you don't have anyone to talk to because we're all stuck in our little hidey holes. So guys, if you need help, please reach out. We're happy to help you.
Absolutely.
And thank you so much for joining us for this special in-person event. And we can't wait to see you guys again next week.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.